me what you think this guitar is before we get started. Using just your ears, what tone wood do you think it is? Because it is one that you've never heard of, I'm sure. So what is the craziest tone wood acoustic guitar that I could have that I haven't already had on this channel? See, Ebony Holly Mango. Is this an oak guitar? It is not an oak. Ready, set. Hold on. Oh boy. I said ready, set, go. Too soon. Here we go. Look at this thing. How freaking cool is this? This is made of bamboo. It look, it looks like it doesn't even have a bridge on it because the bridge is the exact same color as the body. This is a Natasha bamboo guitar. Sam, I like that. I like plywood. I've had a couple plywood guitars. I've had more than a couple. I've had a bunch of plywood guitars. But yeah, so this is a bamboo guitar from Natasha Guitars. It just showed up last night. And dude, this thing is crazy. My kids saw this and they said, this is the coolest guitar you've ever had. They're torn between this one and the boxwood because the boxwood looks like, not that my kids play Minecraft, but they just like, it's so confusing to them. They don't know what to do with it. So, hello, welcome to Guitar Hunter Live. These actually sell for not much at all. I think they're $350, $370. Now it is solid bamboo, but isn't bamboo basically like grass? I mean, it's many pieces. Like the pieces are about an inch wide, maybe. Like in the top, yeah, they're probably about an inch. So that makes it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 pieces across the top. And they're all kind of laminated, or what would you call that? They're joined. Like they're side by side. They're like a butcher block. But the bridge is solid bamboo. The fingerboard is bamboo, which I wonder how that would age. The fretwork is actually really, really good on this. I'll take the capo off. Give it. I'm excited to make a video on this because it's very different. The construction, how they did the nut is very different. On the way. There we go. Okay. All right. How are you guys? How's your week going? How's your Friday so far? It's early in the day, right? For most. Well, a lot of people on the West Coast, it's like 11 a.m. So anyway, 2 o'clock for us over here. Daniel, that is a Natasha, and it's made in China. So there are 3. I'll show you the other 2 very quickly. Okay, so this is actually the most affordable. This is an HPL version of that same guitar. So HPL is high pressure laminate. This one actually looks really cool. It looks like, it is that black plasticky finish, but it looks like the Japanese Sensuko, whatever, like the burned and oiled finish. So this thing like actually sounds really good. It's all HPL, I believe. The neck maybe wood. I'll have to look at this. These just showed up this week. It's kind of interesting when you deal with guitar companies that are entirely in China. Like, everything shows up, everything is in Chinese. Like, other than numbers, I've got nothing. It says Natasha. Yeah. Nope. Natasha. I'm an idiot. Natasha, not Natasha. And then this is one of their higher end ones. So, okay, I think the HPL one is like $280, $300. The bamboo one's like $350, and then there's a big jump. This isn't actually their top of the line, but this is their it's solid Sitka spruce top, East India rosewood back and sides, still a bolt-on neck. Nah, maybe might be a dovetail, but this is the JC45. And so this is kind of their like high-end OM. I think these are like $1,650. So still, I mean, pound for pound, you're getting a lot more guitar technically. But yeah, this one sounds really good too. All right, it's not a very good tune, but yeah, so I'll do a video on those. So in like 3 days, on Monday, I'm jumping on a plane with my wife, and we're flying to the Czech Republic, to the Czech Republic. We're gonna spend a couple days, basically a week, with FERC guitars. It's going to be so cool. Oh, Daniel, I'll have to send some pictures, and yeah, your wife would be super helpful for that stuff. What? 7 p.m. in Nottingham. That's awesome. Bamboo is super versatile, is very versatile and strong. You can make flooring out of it. That guitar sounds great. Dude, it's super surprising. I really like both that HPL. Yeah, I'm always kind of looking for like cool guitars under $500, and both of those are kind of reshaping what I think that price point of guitar could or should be. Okay. I'm trying to get stuff out of the way. So, okay, I'm just going to leave my LaCroix there. But, good Friday. Guten Friday to you. Sonia, hey, how are you? You got something on your right for... Oh, that's funny. Piece of tape. I taped the HDMI cable that runs from here to the camera. That's annoying and funny. I'm glad you caught that. Daniel says, hey, everyone, that was weird. Missed the first minute. What is that? Yeah, so that's a Natasha. Too late to send in picks. Well, this is, we're not doing the rate or roast. We're doing your most controversial guitar opinions. So you could email them to me, and I'll try and work them into the end. We have a ton to get through, and there are some really funny ones. Like, I think we're going to start off with 40 Watt Podcast with Mr. Philip himself. Philip, are you a doctor? Are you a doctor of a librarian doctor? Bamboo is amazing. You can even make clothing out of it. It's wild. We need to be pushing forwards into a sustainable resource. Seriously, it's like, I don't know. I've thought that before when you go through like IKEA and stuff and you see the bamboo cutting boards. I've thought like, man, they can just kind of make panels of this. I bet you can make a guitar, and it actually sounds really good. So anyway, PhD, or not a PhD, master's degree, not a PhD yet. You'll do it, buddy, one day. I don't know if you need to. Probably don't. Mark Hopkins is here. Mark, dude, we're going to see some freaking spicy opinions. There are ones in here that you're going to agree with and some that you're going to be upset with. Oh, there's one that Daniel's going to be so angry about. So, Jazzmaster's Fender's best product, particularly the custom shops. Changed my mind. There's one right here that is awesome, and we're going to talk about that because somebody's got some beef with these. So, with all that said, make sure you hit a thumbs up. And my lips were too dry to make any noise. Yeah, give a thumbs up. So, okay, you can, Sam, I think you have my email address. If not, it's info@jeremyshepherd.com, JeremyShepherd. Got that paper there in the middle. How do you buy one? You like the sound? You can look for, there's a coupon code. I will eventually get commissions when I sell those. I'll have a video out soon. Send me an email. I'll send you a link. You can find them, Natasha. Yeah, anyway. All right. Well, with all that said, make sure you subscribed and you hit a thumbs up, because I would love, it's kind of a goal and an ambition to get my channel up above 100,000 subscribers. not for any. I would like the plaque. Let's be honest. I would like the plaque, but it also is. I feel like what we're doing here in the community that's going on here is a really good thing. And every couple months I get a new wave of people, and they're so excited that this channel exists, and they had no clue that it existed. So let's try and do that. I've never put any money into ads to like grow my channel. That seems cheesy. I haven't paid even anything to push my course right guitars faster. So anyway, all that said, thumbs up, subscribe, and yeah. So let's get into some opinions that will make people angry. Let's just jump in. There's like 50 of these, so we're just gonna blast through them. Number 1, 40 watt podcast. Philip says Gibson is making objectively better guitars today than they ever made in the 1950s. I think that would ruffle many feathers, and I completely agree. I think that for Martin and Gibson, they're doing better guitars now. Like Martins since 2012 are better than they've been since the 50s. Like they're just so good. And Gibsons too, I think it's nonsense. Like Gibson has bad QC. They don't. They really don't. At least in my experience, and I've probably, this sounds really braggy, I've probably been around more brand new, straight out of the box Gibsons than most people, and for me, they're about the same. They're about the same as everybody else. Fender is really good. Their guitars usually, Fender and Martin are always the ones that are just like pretty much locked in. They don't really need any work or setup when they show up. But anyway, I agree that, yeah, I agree with these. We're just going to blast through and then I'll come back. So Patrick Laudendecker says the right Slope D has the best flame maple, but that headstock shape and size, no bueno. Yes, that guitar, let me see. Can I find it? This will be a fun and silly thing to find real quick. They look like the aliens from Fifth Element. Let me see if I can find these guys. So that guitar always kind of reminded me, and Daniel has this guitar now, so that's what's funny. Yeah, Daniel has this. So that guitar always kind of reminds me of these guys, like big body, tiny little headstock. So I don't know. That's all a joke. I don't mean it, Daniel. But yeah, that guitar, the dimensions have always been a little wonky, right? So just, it's such a small headstock, and it does kind of bug me. I mean, it's not bad. That one works. There are some of them, even my Husson Dalton, my DRH custom, had like the A string had too much of a break angle. So it would rest on the E, but it would like sometimes not quite, and it would like jangle and buzz. So anyway, yeah, but I won't pick on a small builder too much. All right, the next one, this is a big one. This is the one from Daniel. Daniel Nadeem says the Fender should sell every Strat, or should give every Strat owner with a modern style Strat trim system the springs to keep the tremolo bar in place. The fact that it does not come with the guitar, it is not advertised, and I found out from a YouTube video I was flabbergasted. Or I found out from a YouTube video is flabbergasting. Yeah, that's like Captain Lee's thing always is these screws that fall out. I mean, they're like in the Amazon store. And so if you don't know, when you get a Strat, there's a sticker over it. When it's brand new, there's a sticker over the trim. And inside there is this tiny little screw, but you don't know, and you take the screw off, then you play the guitar, you set it down, you move around, and then you go to use your tremolo arm, and it's like too floppy and too loose until it's too tight, and then it's like it gets tight in a place that's not helpful. And so what you don't know is that there's supposed to be a set screw down in the bottom of there that holds, that once you get screwed in close, it starts to compress, add some tension and some pressure back up against the spring. And yeah, so it's just, I would say of Fender's designs, that's probably one of the worst. It's just totally an afterthought. I wish that they would have just thought any bit about that. Like find a way to just adhere, stick a spring down there in the bottom. Let me see some comments. Hey-oh! Hey, buddy. Yeah. Daniel, dying. The tuning stability is great. Yeah, that guitar is awesome. It's so good. Oh, Morgan's got, this is from Morgan. Oh, that's from Morgan? That's not from you? Okay. Well, Morgan was complaining about the Strat screws. All right. Here's another one. Daniel just swinging for the fences, trying to make people angry, saying Strats aren't worth it. Do you mean worth it like at all? Worth it like American Strats, Elite Strats? I will say it's hard for me to really justify a Strat much above $1,500. Like, I think the American Pro 2, which is still my favorite vendor of the last 20 years, probably. Don't know if I can say that. I can probably say that. Of American standards, which there's no longer an American standard, which that's also confusing and annoying. But for the American Pro 2 at $14.99, it's probably gone up since then. But man, I just don't think those guitars are like, if you ever in wood shop in high school, you could probably build a Strat or a Tele yourself. They're not that hard to build, and they're not that hard to put together or to modify, which is like a good lining. What gets me is when you get into like the Elite Strats and the Ultra, you're like, that's a lot of money. And when you just look at like that compared to a Gibson Les Paul, like Les Pauls are always more expensive because they're way harder to build. It's a carved top, it's a set neck, it's just all of that, everything about how that guitar is made. It's just two very different guitars. Yeah, I got a Fender Ultra, and Mark. Yeah, dude, well, Mark, you don't have a normal Strat, buddy. You've got a Wildwood, you've got a custom shop. That's an amazing one. Yeah. Here's a controversial opinion. Schecter versions of Strats, dollar for dollar, blow the Fenders away. Sound, playability, and ergonomics. Boo! Schecter sucks. That's a brand I just never talk about because I just don't care about. Yes, let's keep going. Let's see, what else? How about this? A 24 3/4 inch scale length versus 25.5 inch scale length always. That's a broad brush to paint with. That's just kind of hooking up a fire hose and just committing to one way of life. Okay, so if you don't know, this is talking about like, so 25 1/4. Hang on, 25 1/4 is the PRS scale length, right? It's also Gallagher guitars scale length. Compared to the 24 3/4, it's a Gibson scale length. So this person, it's saying it's it's polyho. I've always watched these YouTube videos and people are like, I'm sorry for butchering your names. I'm not good at saying names. I always laughed at that, and now I do it. I'm like, I listen back and I'm an idiot and I can't read. Yeah, so this is someone saying that PRS scale length is better, always better, than Gibson scale length, which I could see. So the last thing to talk about with scale length is like longer scale length means more tension, which means the strings feel they're less slinky, they're a little more stiff. And so especially for any time you're going to have a guitar that you're going to play in lower tunings, like to me, a Les Paul doesn't really make sense in drop C. Like it's just too floppy at that point. Or even drop D, you're getting to where you'd have to bump up your strings to be a lot heavier. So yeah. So I don't know if you could always do that. Like, wow, what are other good 24 3/4? Now, an acoustic guitar, this is D18. That's 20. Hang on. D18 scale length 25.5. So we're a 1/4 inch longer compared to a Gibson scale length, which that is what's cool is like if you play a J45 and you go to a Les Paul or vice versa, which kills me, vice versa. Anyway, they feel similar when you go back and forth between those two. So it's interesting. It's a very specific but broad brush to paint those two. So yeah, the Strat is the perfect beginner electric guitar. I disagree with that. There's too much going on. 3 knobs, 5-way switch, tremolo, jangly. I disagree. I think you need a straightforward 1 volume, 1 tone, 1 pickup selector. I think a Telecaster is like almost always. It's funny in a video that's, if you're on my Patreon, you saw a video where I compared these two, or not really compare, but I talk about Epiphone. This is one of the U.S. made by Gibson Epiphone Casinos, and then this is an inspired by Gibson Epiphone Les Paul a 59. And man, in that video, I kind of pick on myself for saying, hey, if you're an acoustic guitar player and you're coming into electric guitar, I tell you to get a Telecaster. So I think if you're a beginner, I think a Telecaster is the right way to go. Or you could also do like an SG. They're not bad. I mean, still 2 volumes, 2 tones. It's a little confusing. But I think a Strat just has a guitar with a tremolo has too much going on, in my opinion. Yeah. Telecaster is a great starter day every day. I agree. Correction. Taylor Grand Concert is 24 7/8. That's interesting. Man, every time I think that they're like, well, hang on, but what is 7 divided into 9? What's that as a percentage or decimal? Because I think that's going to be basically like, isn't that the Martin shorter scale length? Like a 0018 is a 24.9 inch scale length, right? So, and then 25.5 is the longer scale. Gibson Guild D55s and the F55 have a 25 7/8 scale length. They're a long, or 25 3/4, 7/8. They're a really long scale length. All right, so 0.7777. Did you actually do that? Why'd you put the 8 on there? Like, tell me you're an attorney without telling me. And needless precision, Daniel. A lot of sustain on electric guitars is pointless and almost never utilized. That's an interesting, but there are a lot of pedals, man, that say sustainer on them, and they make, dude, you could pick that G string and it'd still ring. You can go get a beer and come back. It'd still be ringing. That's what my uncle does. 7/8, 0.875. Okay, so we're right on the money. We're very close to a 24.9, which would be a Martin scale length. So as it turns out, maybe it doesn't matter that much. Daniel says, you asked for 7 divided by 9, so I copied and pasted it from a calculator. Yeah, okay, that's fair. Don't give me too much credit. Clear pickguards on acoustic guitars are just wrong. That's a good one. I only have one guitar with a clear pickguard, and I kind of like it. It's my Ferk Yellow Deluxe. That video went out this week. That one is super cool. Because I like seeing the cedar. But yeah, I get that. All right, let's go back to some spicy opinions. This is good. I like this so far. Oh boy, I've lost track. Okay, we did that one. Here we go. Vintage guitars aren't for the faint of heart. Just because they're old doesn't make them good. Dude, this is a thing that Philip and I have talked about on the 40 Watt podcast a couple times, which is, man, like, old does not mean better. Most of the best guitars that have ever been made have been made in the last 10 years, which is awesome. Great news for us. And with a recession coming in, probably all the things that we love are going to go on sale. Now, hopefully we will have been in a good financial place now, so that in a couple months, when other people are starting to sell stuff, you're in a place where you can get that thing and hold on to it for a couple of years until it comes back up in value. But older guitars are rarely... Okay, let me think this thing through. I agree with the sentiment. Now, it's not always true, because there are some old guitars that are absolutely freaking stunners, that are just so good, so much better than new stuff. But I would say, for the most part, if you want an incredibly cool, great playing, great sounding guitar, save up and get a custom shop of something, get a boutique, or you could even do like a super high-end parts caster. Like this Tele behind me is just an amazing parts caster, basically. And it's just a bunch of parts that got put together by Mr. Rich Allen himself, which this is the best Telecaster I've ever owned, and I can't believe I get to keep it. So praise God for that. But yeah, so they're not for the faint of heart. There is a... old guitars bring with them stress and anxiety and worry. Just the fact that they're old, the fact that they repair people, so much of the value is vulnerable to damage, poor repairs, all that stuff. So they're definitely, I agree with the sentiment. They aren't for the faint of heart. Just because they're old doesn't mean that they're good. So that's kind of two different things. But I like this sentiment a lot. All right, here's one that's a little smaller. I have to read it up closer. Controversial opinions. Fender, the Modern Player Marauder. This is Travis on Facebook. Nope, maybe this is Instagram. Controversial opinions. Number 1, Fender's Modern Marauder is good Lord, I can't read. Fender's Modern Player Marauder is the most versatile electric guitar ever made. Most versatile electric guitar ever made. Am I forgetting what a Marauder is? How can this be? Okay, let's look at this. I have so many tabs open. I should close some tabs. Okay. How can this be true? Is this true? I don't believe it. Share screen, Chrome tab, Fender Marauder. Okay, so this is the Marauder. Okay, so versatile. One man's versatile is another man's complicated. And that's what I find with guitars that are particularly complex like this, with a ton of controls and switches and the jazz circuit and volume and tone, and then it's kind of like the mood pedal. Oh, Mark, I got that from Mark. I had the whatchamacallit, the Chase Bliss Mood, and it's an amazing pedal, and I couldn't make it do the same thing 2 times in a row. Like, I would leave it on the same settings. I would take a picture of every setting on there, and then I would come back and I would play it, and it would not do the same thing. I could, like, even if I recorded it. So anyway, I don't know if I agree with this. It's fine. It's a cool guitar. I think that it is. All of us need to really pay attention to the guitars that we have that are super specific and then super diverse, and kind of get guitars that are diverse and really capable. And I think if you can only have a few guitars, there's a couple strategies. A few guitars, at 3 or 4 guitars, you could have like exact opposite tones of each other. Like have a super twangy Tele and have a 330. You can see what I'm doing here. Or a Casino. Like they're complete opposite tones in guitars. And between those, you can blend. And when you're recording, you could use one. You could, roll the tone off of the other one and figure it out. But anyway, so one man's diverse is another. One man's versatile is another man's confusing or complicated. Number 2, an O-sized 12-fret Martin with a pickup is as much or more guitar than most people ever need. Well, I disagree with that. A single O is a tiny little guitar, man. That's a small guitar. Small. So I don't think that would work for a lot of people. Oh, Daniel, getting the L3 back from Restoration Rejection Shop number 1. Yeah. Daniel, I'll have to tell you, somebody emailed me about that guitar, what probably happened with the finish, because it was a French polish, not a lacquer finish in the original. Anyway. No way. I'm going to again say the Telecaster is the most versatile guitar ever made. I agree with Philip. I think that a Telecaster can do most things. And that's the thing. I've wanted to make a video about it, but I don't know. I'm not an incredible guitar player. And I don't have a whole, I think I've played everything I know how to play at this point. I need to just take a couple weeks off and do lessons and listen to a bunch of new music. But anyway, yeah. The wheels fell off of that thought. Telecasters. Oh, okay. I want to do this video about how Telecasters, if you see someone playing a Telecaster with a certain kind of amp, holy cow, there's a giant spider on the wall over there. Whew, just went inside the door trim by the doorknob. Well, if I die, you guys know what happened. But yeah, anyway, so imagine a Tele being played in a heavy metal band, but then you look at all of the crazy, have you guys seen that leaked PRS, the PRS Tele that they're making with a humbucker in the neck and then a mini hum, it looks like, in the bridge. Some artist, I forget his name. But anyway, all that to say, Telecasters can do a whole lot of stuff. But they get when you look at them, you're like, oh, it's a country guitar or it's an Americana guitar. But the reality is it can do almost anything. Yep. Should batteries be taken out of your guitar when not amped? One of my guitar's electronics got ruined with the deposits. Yep, absolutely. Like toys. If your kids have toys with 9 volts or C batteries, take them out, especially if it's humid, because it'll just oxidize the terminals. There are no windows in the studio, so I always wonder, if I hear a super bassy sound, is it lightning or thunder? thunder, or is it like a car driving by? I think that was a car driving by with big bass. But anyway, yes, pretty sure Tom Moreo plays the telly. Dude, there's some Tom Moreo comments in here that are gonna light your biscuits on fire, Marky Dugan. All right, here's the next one. All Ovations aren't as bad as you say they are. Who hurt you, Jeremy? Ovations hurt me. They hurt my heart, my eyes, my body, my lap, my ears, my sensibility, my sense of rationality. They just are disappointing. Now, there are, and I will say, there are absolutely exceptions to this. Some of the celebrities, the really nice ones, they sound really great. I think they're way better suited to be classical guitars. So I think like Khaki King, basically no one does better with an Ovation than Khaki King. And then other ones like the woman from Heart. And there are some Ovations that are okay. But overall, they are awful. I will say that's going to be written on my tombstone. Jeremy's waiting for the resurrection of Jesus. And Jeremy hates Ovations. I got to lean out of the way for this one. Martin Standard Series are generally a waste of money. Better go to Asian made and save your money for boutique or higher. Holy cow. How dare you? How dare you? All right, I got to lean out of the way a second. This one, holy moly. Okay, let's pick this apart. Number one, Martin Standard Series are generally a waste of money. Boo. Nonsense. I disagree with this one. To me, I think that's where Martin comes into its own. I think they are pretty much unrivaled. Now, with that said, they're the Ford F1. Like, they're the Ford. They are, like, and they're getting to where they're offering, like, the Ford, like an F-150. Like, it's a work truck on the bottom end, but it's now nicer than any car that, high-end BMWs from 15, 20 years ago. All of a sudden, you're getting to where, like, they've got, like, cameras everywhere, 15 speakers inside. They've got air-conditioned seats. They've got massaging seats. They've got lane assistance. They've got a heads-up display. So anyway, comparing that to guitars, like you look at the D18 is basically an F-150. D28's an F-250. And then you start getting the nicer versions, the variations. You start getting to like, the Marquis. Well, that's like the Lariat package or whatever. I don't know how far I can carry this comparison between the two. Or is Lariat GM or Chevy? In Ford, the FX4, okay, so that's the first one. Are they a waste of money? I think absolutely not. I think that the standards shine. Now, I do think it's problematic. Martin's always wanted to be somewhat of a working man's guitar, or at least an aspirational but affordable guitar. So they would work really hard to keep the D18s, below 2,500. They work really hard to keep the D28s below 2,800. But now, like, I think a standard D28 is what, $31.99, $32.99? I think that's a huge deal that they've crossed that threshold into being pricey. Like, that's an expensive guitar. And at $3,000, I don't know if a D28 is quite worth that. I would, like, if I got my Haas & Dalton TDM for $2,000, you could get, like, I've bought many Martins below $2,000. Those days are not gone, but they're harder now than they used to be. But this is a good how dare you. How dare you. And the second part of this is the much better to go Asian made. What Asian made guitars actually rival a Martin for quality, reliable, and let's deal with this head on. What Martin or what Asian made acoustic guitar will hold its value anywhere close to, if you're saying dollars you spend for it into dollars you could sell it for, you're going to lose so much more. Like, yes, you could buy a Blue Ridge, a BR280. The Brazilian Rosewood looks kind of like a D42 or a D45. You could buy that, and it will be worth 40% of what you paid for it, compared to a Martin that you would lose 20 or 30%, 20% if you're clever and you can hang on to it and wait for it for a while. Okay, we're good. All right, good. Yeah. Yep. So we talked about this. So Daniel's D18 Modern Deluxe is just as good as a boutique comparison. We did that. We didn't actually film it, but we compared his D18 Modern Deluxe against my Haas and Dalton, and we both said like they're pretty comparable. I actually like the neck profile more on the Modern Deluxe. Maybe not than my Haas and Dalton, but I really liked it on Daniel's. He also has a D41 that is awesome. I mean, they're expensive too. I mean, you're getting to like big boy money on those. So, the only guitars that Martin should be making is the standard series. They're the only ones I pay attention to. I get asked all the time, should I get the Martin DX C1E AE or should I get the D10 RGT C1 FT with the new Fishman LR pickup? I just don't care. Like, I think that Martin has never really done that great, but they sell a ton of guitars, so maybe they are doing great. They're just, the guitars under $1,500, under the D15 or under the 15 series have never been that interesting to me. The Plastic Fantastics are okay. But yeah, so I have an American 2007 Elite LX Ovation. It has an incredible sweet sound, plays great. I love you guys. I love you, but you never played mine. Tremendous live gig sound. Yeah. Well, that's another unfair comparison is live tone. You can get some great pickups that don't have a whole lot to do with the structure of your actual guitar, which is, there's one in here. There's a comment on pickups that we'll talk about here in a bit. The Laramie is a Ram. Lariat is a Ford. Okay. Martin standards are the standard. I think so. I think, yeah, like like I said, they're the F-150. Now, you can get a better truck. You could get something like more muscly and more fit, like you could get, this analogy breaks down. But if you look to like other brands, you look to boutique brands, is there such a thing? Okay, I'm out of my depth. So these are guitars I want to check out, which is the Martin's SC13 is a very interesting direction for them. I think so too. I think it's the right move. I think that's what they were trying with the performing artist, or the GP, like the GP1CE, the GP, all those like big chunk of consonants. So how dare you? Let's go back to that one. Now, okay, the next one. Walrus is trash. I love their concepts, designs, art, and build quality, but they don't sound good. This is Flannel Man Dan. That's good. Flannel Man Dan. I have only owned one Walrus audio, but I kept it and sold a bunch of other things and kept the Walrus audio. It is on my board now, which is packed up. But I have the Walrus Audio Fathom, the reverb, and it's the coolest, most crazy reverb I've ever had, and I love it. So I think Walrus Audio, I think that they're beautifully unbound to tradition, and I think that's a great thing that happens in the pedal world that I wish happened more in the guitar world, where they just get to make cool stuff. And the quality is really good on all the stuff I've had. The build quality is cool. The art is really cool. Yeah. So I guess I disagree. Walrus ain't trash. PRSs are gaudy, and the birds are distracting and dumb. Tell them, T-Funk. I like this one. It took me so long to come around to PRSs. I did not care about PRSs until a couple years ago when I realized that PRSs are actually, that they are, what's the comparison here? PRS was the first boutique electric guitar, in my opinion. Let me think that through. There were the others. What were the ones that Jerry Garcia always played? Those are technically earlier, but like mid-70s, PRS is starting to make some amazing guitars, and that's like all the Santana kind of stuff in the 70s. And then he really hit his stride with like super glam rock. Like, yeah, I think what gets me is PRS guitars are so beautiful and ornate and like amazing woods, beautiful inlays. They're such a specific like modern kind of design that they don't age gracefully. Well, I don't know if that's true, but there's so much pressure to keep them pristine and clean and tidy, and they can't look old. So anyway, yeah. So I think PRS's. I know the PRS acoustic I had was pretty underwhelming. Sounded good, but it had like really weird brown, like mother of toilet seat inlay around it, and it just didn't look very good to me. Alembic, they were like boutique electric guitars, or just kind of bespoke, handmade, like homespun, you could say, kind of any of those words. But yeah. Guitar Squatch says, I feel like PRS are going for the same demographic that Gibson goes for, but poorer. That's interesting. I always think of PRS as a lot more expensive. They've done a really good job. Like the amount of SEs that have come into the market, they've done a really, really good job bringing in younger players. Guys, I have a video coming out. If you're a patron or channel member, you may have already seen it. I put it out this morning. But I talk about Epiphone. I talk about both the made by Gibson and the inspired by Gibson. And in that one, like, I don't hold back. Like, I come at Gibson pretty good. And the opening line is actually a line I said kind of halfway through the video, and I pulled it out and put it right at the beginning of the video, which is, for me, like, it is so bothersome that Gibson uses their own brand as a weapon against people that want to own a Gibson. Like, it's really problematic that and maybe they're not, maybe it's just their fans, but there's no brand that its owners make you feel as bad as you do for owning a licensed version, like the most affordable thing that you can get. It's just, it bums me out. PRS are gaudy and the birds are distracting and dumb. You're distracting and dumb. I own a PRS 60 AE, biggest, most expensive crap. What? You will play retail 1600 junk. That's interesting. Any other? You like my shirt? I do too. This one's awesome. I got this from the Martin shop. I just love it. Did have to lose some weight to wear it again publicly because I got. I don't know if you know this, but people say some mean stuff on the internet, and usually it doesn't bother me. But one comment got to me a couple weeks ago. And so anyway, John Mayer brought them to the mainstream. That's a spicy opinion. I don't think he brought them to look at freaking, like, Mark Tremonti from Creed has played PRS forever. You look at between him and Carlos Santana. Those two. Now, those guys, they didn't sell hang on. There were PRS artist models of like the Tremonti. There have been a bunch. There were the SE. That's kind of the big push with that. So, man, I think that's. I think John Mayer took them to another level because he's more famous than either of those guys. But it is, yeah. What? People say mean things on the internet? It's true. People are the worst. Nylon string guitars need more love. Maybe. Possibly. All right. Ovation is 100% unnecessary in today's world, and they look stupid, in my opinion. Buckle in, guys and girls. Sonia, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we are talking. Well, anyway, okay. Ovation is 100% unnecessary. Well, why would they be necessary? Do people need comfortable guitars? Sure. Yes, they do. I think that more people are moving away from Dreadnoughts than ever before, and they're finally getting down to where they can play. They're getting to where they can play smaller guitars, and we're just making and having more options for smaller guitars. But you look at the idea of an Ovation. Like, look at the new Fender Acoustasonics. I think that idea is done way better. They're way more comfortable. They play great. They don't have bracing problems. But yeah, my issue with Ovation is kind of twofold. Number one, they're just poorly built, and because they're fan braced, they're all going to crack up eventually if you have a steel string. Then the other one is I end up playing like this because they just scoot out off of my lap. And they're not that comfortable to play standing up either. But Jack Black did play one when what was that movie? Saving Silverman? Yep. But yeah, sorry for the Ovation hate. The early applause guitars with the steel necks are better than any Ovation. I mean, but they're made by Ovation. I own an applause. It stays in Louisiana at my in-laws' house, and it's awful. Carbon fiber acoustics are taking the place of Ovation and doing a much better job. That's probably true. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because the other appeal to an Ovation is that in theory, you could take them with you more often. Maybe that's why they crack and break up so more. Maybe they're getting taken places. Like I knew a guy who I forget the number. I think it was like 2.5 pitchers of beer was how much. Like he knew how many ounces his Ovation would hold, and his like. After he'd played a set at these like super redneck bars in Virginia and West Virginia, he would fill it up from a keg and then he would drink it out of the output jack. Was the story. He'd always bring it in to get repaired and just stunk like old stale beer. And it was like sticky and gross inside. So he'd like fill it up. So anyway. Hang on, where is it? Well, I don't think it was an Ovation. I think somebody talked. It was a Chet Atkins. So he played a Chet Atkins with a piezo. Yeah, cool guitar. I mean, those are okay. Chet Atkins. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, he's a lot like many of us. He was a poor guitar player at one point. All right, next spicy opinion. Sheeran Lowden guitars are way overpriced. I agree with this. And I just had one. I had one a few months ago. I bought it for probably $600, $650. I think the guy paid $900 for it. John got it. And he was disappointed with it. I got it and I was disappointed with it. It looked great. Like it looks like a proper like Lowden guitar, but man, they don't sound that good. They're super boxy. I mean, they're fine. They're fine for what they are. Like the one I had was the S. It was a small. And so it was okay, but yeah. So anyway, oh my gosh, we got to cook. We got to boogie through these. All right, I'm just going to blast through these and then I'll come back to the comments at the end. Okay. I'm an engineer and have been traveling to Chinese factories most of my adult life for work. I will not buy a guitar made in China. Factory workers often work 80 to 90 hours a week. There's no dignity in that. I will not buy guitars from China. I've often wondered that. I've wondered the ethical implications of guitars. Like, how can that bamboo guitar be $400? So I don't know. But I trust people that actually were there. So that's helpful. Most of the specs people worry about don't really matter. I think that's true. I think a lot of people spend too much time with a keyboard under their hands than they do, or a phone in their hands than they do with a guitar in their laps and in their hands. Like, play guitar. See what you like about it. Make up your own opinions. I think some of the details that don't matter. I think fretboard radius doesn't matter for almost anybody. Like, it's not a big deal. I think that what pots are in a thing or what pickups are in an electric guitar. I just think that those things, if it sounds good, it is good. Martin guitars are overrated. They're not overrated. Some are. Let's see, which ones are? I think a D28 is overrated. I think a D18 is a super fun guitar. D21 is amazing. I think that it's a huge problem for the bluegrass community that only a D28, is a real guitar. And if you play a Taylor or if you play a Gibson or if you play, a D16, people are going to say that you're wrong or whatever. So yeah, that bums me out a bit too. Yeah. Oh, hang on. I just remembered I have to do something real quick. But yeah, what do you guys think about that? Martin's overrated. I realized, and it's good for you guys. I realized I didn't turn on monetization on this video. So, because these, just you guys watching these, like once people watch for longer, it actually pays me more. And once you're in, it doesn't make you watch ads over and over. It's just that ad revenue, and then you watch the whole time. So anyway, okay. I can't catch up. Too many comments. Use gear that makes, what is this one? Use gear that makes you happy, cheap, bougie, digital, analog, whatever works. Dude, I agree with this. I like it. If it sounds good, it is good. I had that same like mental hurdle myself because I did that video with Donner's guitar pedals, and most of them they're fine, they're whatever. But there's one that I actually really liked. I really liked the Rat. It's the Dark Mouse is what they call it. And I don't have a Rat pedal, and I just think that one is cool, sounds cool. And so to me, I'm like, but it's Donner, but it's cheap, but the reality is I like the way it sounds, and it works, so why not hang on to it? So, if you want to be in a band, learn anything but guitar. This is Mr. Andrew McGee from Germany. If you want to be in a band, learn anything but guitar. I think that's probably true. The other thing, I made a joke. A couple weeks ago, I got to hang out with the guys from Girl Named Tom, and I picked on their bass player. I was like, "Are you really a guitar player that plays bass?" And he was like, "Yeah." And so the amount of bass players that actually like are guitar players that they'll play bass because there's no one in the band that would play, or drummers or whatever. So I think if you want to make a band, yeah, I would say if you want to be a band, work at being a singer. Like that's the weak place, at least in the music culture that I grew up in and is around here. There just aren't enough singers. Yeah, most guitar solos are unnecessary. It's probably true. There are definitely way fewer of them than there used to be. And there's a great YouTube video. Who did it? It's like one of those like talking head, like social commentary videos talking about like how rappers replace guitar solos. And it just talked about how guitar players just got too expensive, and then rappers were more affordable, and they would get deals where they'd get paid on the back end of the deal. And when those songs would blow up and they have, like Ludacris in a Justin Bieber song or whatever, they'd make so much more money doing it that way. So anyway. All right, here's another one. Steve says, I hate pickups in acoustic guitars. I don't need them. I also think undersaddle piezo pickups negatively impact intonation. That doesn't make sense. Okay. I hate pickups in acoustic guitars. I could see that. Like, there is no pickup, in my opinion, there's no pickup that sounds like the guitar. There just isn't any. And so we're forced to take, like, the best worst option. Or the best worst option. So for me, that's usually like the Ellerbag's Lyric or the Anthem SL. Sorry, not the Lyric. The Lyric is hit or miss for me. The Ellerbag's Anthem SL, I think, is the most bang for the buck. It's a microphone and a piezo, or a transducer, and it blends between those two. The K&K is good, but still you need a preamp, and it still doesn't sound like a guitar, but it sounds close. The Trinity system is the closest thing I've ever heard. I have a friend with the D28 Marquis that has that, and it sounds like a guitar in front of a big microphone. So the second part, you don't need them. Well, that's fine. Yeah. Don't get a guitar with a pickup. You can get a guitar, and if you ever want to put a pickup in, you can. The other one is, okay, the third part is you said that they negatively impact intonation. Unfortunately, that doesn't make sense, because you might move, like, okay, so you have your saddle, you have your nut, and you have the scale length. You're moving this, unless you're moving it, because you'd have to move it like what, the radius of that triangle, like the hypotenuse, right? Wait, which would be the hypotenuse? Anyway, you have the radius going out, so you'd have to move it like inches before you're actually moving, like you'd have to move it up this way before you're actually getting it. Does that make sense? So it does mess with the intonation. It certainly could mess with the tone of the guitar. Intonation in acoustic guitars bothers me. That's like one of my pet peeves when people say, I can hear the intonations out. You're like, well, acoustic guitars, you don't really have much to do with the intonation. Yeah. So, it's ludicrous that almost every 12 fret guitar still has a slot head tuners. It's 2020, not 1922. Tell him, Zach Cotton. So Zach, those two things, man, like a 12 fret body and a slot headstock are pretty much Those are two features that seem to go together. And like the dudes like Chris from Driftwood Guitars would say that a slot head guitar, that sounds better, and that the only reason we do peg heads is that they're easier to manufacture. And I would anecdotally agree. I don't have any real evidence to back that up, but it feels right. So it must be the truth, right? Because my feelings must be ultimate reality. Fender Jazzmaster is just a garbage guitar, all around ugly, awkward, awful. Daniel, this one's for you. I disagree, but I have opinions. I have thoughts about this. So I disagree with this. I think it's a good-looking guitar. So if you don't know what it looks like, here's one back behind me. Let me look at this one while I talk about it. I like the offset. I like that it's not a... it's interesting. No one calls a Strat an offset, but it's not symmetrical. Anyway, yeah, there's not... The Jazzmaster is a really pretty looking guitar, but it's definitely not for everybody. And so I think that's what brings me around to like my closing thought on this one is like, I think that Strats and Tellies have been so popular and just at the forefront of everyone's, like every band for so long that we had to switch gears and like, what else is out there? I think it's also like old Strats and Tellies from the 50s and 60s got so freaking expensive that everyone was like, well, what else is out there? What else did Leo Fender make and was cool at that time? And so then you start looking around. That's when people found Music Masters, Jazz Masters, Jaguars, all of Duosonics, all of those cool guitars, shorter scale length, or Jazz Masters, full scale length, just different kind of setups. Now, this guitar was technically a flop, but I think even now, and I'm not really in this market, but like you can get a 60s, like pretty straight Jazzmaster for what? Under 10, right? For a 60s, like pre-CBS, maybe not pre-CBS, but compared to a Strat or a Telly, they're crazy. So not ugly, not awful. Got to blast through these. Have so many more, and I got to leave here in a minute. PRS is only kept afloat by the worship guitar market. I don't think that's true. I mean, there's a huge, like that's a huge market. I'm in that world a little bit. I'm in like Indelible Grace, like kind of acoustic guitar, 9-verse Christianity. That's the world I'm in. Not, and like every now and then we'll play a Hillsong tune. But even when I look around, like, I don't know. It's weird to me that McPherson's have blown up in praise and worship music the way that they have. That's strange to me. But I don't think this is true. Mr. JT Barn, that PRS is only kept afloat by the PRS market. Dreads are just too big. Now fight me. Dreads are too big. I think it's been a long time coming for people to have that same opinion. I think the dreads are just, they're so big. They're uncomfortable for most people. Like, I'm not a big guy. I'm like 5'9". I'm 5'8" and 5'8", but I wear shoes, so I'm 5'9". But yeah, I'm like 5'9", 210. And so for me, man, it's just like Dreadnought. Like, it works, but I gotta pump up some confidence for that guitar. The more I've played like my Ferk Yellow Deluxe, my Waterloo, my Paget Model 1, like the more guitars I get, the fewer of them are Dreadnoughts. So I agree with this. Hardtail Strats are superior. I think they are in a lot of ways. They're freaking cool, especially having string through on a Strat changes the tone. It makes the bridge pickup enjoyable to hear. You can do a lot more telly stuff if you have a hardtail Strat. Eastman Dreadnoughts are just as good as the Martin Standard Series. Roast me. Maybe in how they sound and how they play, but resale value, you're gonna just eat it. And not even resale value. Like, I know most people that buy guitars of that level, they're gonna keep them as long as they can. They're gonna keep them forever, ideally. But like, no one says, like, I'm glad my grandpa bought that old Eastman that Alvarez in 1978. You know, like, import guitars, for whatever, a million reasons, they just don't hold their value in the same way. I'm going to try and skim through. What? You're 6'7"? You freaking giant. 6'5". Is that why you're called Guitar Squatch? Because you're so big? Then I pick up my LGO to take a break from my dreads. Yeah. I love Strats with floating trims. Me too. Morgan, you're here. I have an AEX 520 and blah, blah, blah. Esteban's a workhorse. Esteban is a con man. 9 suck. Vintage, silly, modern. Vintage is silly. Modern are good. Better plus sound as good. Martin is king. I like this. I like just the cadence of this writing. I like the flow. 9 suck. No. Rick Beato says they're the best. And he had friends and he owns a studio, so he must be right. Vintage is silly. Sometimes. Preferentially. Modern are made better. True. We've talked about that. I think guitars are the best now they ever have been. Plus sound as good. Okay, yeah. I do think like this 1959 Journeyman Jazzmaster, it really does sound awesome and it plays great and it looks like a super old guitar, but it's like the absolute best of two universes. Like it's a beautiful new guitar that sounds great. And it's also looks the part and feels pretty old. So guitars with no pickup, you can't get that sound by rolling off the bridge and the tone in the bridge position, but you can get close. And unless it's a room full of us that are watching you play, which it's not, it's people taking a break from work that they've been working at, they work for the Department of Transportation. They're out having a beer with their family and their kids are eating chicken fingers and that stuff. And they're just enjoying music around. To them, they will not know if your pedals are true bypass. They won't know if you're playing a reissue or the real guitar. They won't know if you have an active acoustic pickup or a passive pickup. They will just know this music sounds good, or this music sounds bad. If it sounds bad, you're in trouble. So, yeah, I would say, sure. Bigsby's are not all that great. True. They are a freaking pain to restring. It's such an annoying thing. That and locking trems, they're so cool once they're running, but they make me never want to change strings. Smoke on the Water should be banned in guitar shops. Probably. Iron Man got me. Dun, dun, dun. No, that's Smoke on the Water. Dun, 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 dun. I wonder who works in a guitar shop? Does anybody work in a guitar shop right now? What's the song now? By the time I was leaving the guitar shop, we were starting to see like lots of people coming in and playing like Mumford & Son riffs on all the Martins. Not a Les Paul fan. I prefer an SG or a Reverend Double Agent. Body and weight wise. How dare you? How dare you think that an import guitar could be as good as Gibson of our fathers? I'm not a Les Paul fan either. Like I've got this one. I'm probably going to sell it. I got it as part of a deal from Sweetwater. Video coming out. It'll be out Monday or Tuesday while I'm in the Czech Republic. Guys, I'm losing my mind. I'm slowly descending into insanity. Okay. I really have to blast through the rest of these. I have to leave in 10 minutes. Like, I have to go to Charlottesville. Personal opinion, I don't think to find Taylor's opinion. They seem soulless to me. I get that. Taylor's can be really sterile. Now, another word for sterile could be diverse. Like, they don't sound like a thing. Like, you pick up a D28, you play, and you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds like, Dan Tomensky, or it sounds like bluegrass, sounds like Billy Strings. To me, when I pick up a Taylor, it sounds like all these bands that I haven't thought about in a long time. Like, I played them like, this sounds like Collective Soul. This sounds like Dave Matthews. This sounds like, Vertical Horizon or whatever. 12 strings are better as an electric. That is such a good and weird opinion. I think 12-string electrics are like underrated for sure. Christopher Cross's Sailing is so smooth. That's just a fun song. Also, you should watch that video because it's awesome. I just want to look like that guy, not even for Halloween, just in life. Big football jersey, giant Strat 12 with a big hockey puck headstock. Buy pedals based on looks, not on tone. You can make anything sound good. Looking good is hard. That's true. I still buy pedals that look awesome. Like the monkey wrench that I got from OCE is so cool. Before the internet, people enjoyed their guitars. Now they post every single minor issue on forums. That's true. If you want to feel bad about your stuff, just go to the internet. I think that message boards are really, really bad for your personal development, like for you growing as a person. So I would avoid them. U2, most overrated band of all time. I do think that U2 lost me forever when they put an album on my phone without asking, that it won't let me delete. And every time I get in my car and like, yeah, for years, I would get in my car and it would turn on and the Bluetooth would turn on and it would start playing this dumb U2 album that I didn't want, and it just drove me crazy. With that said, there are those first like 3 songs on Joshua Tree that are unbelievable. Like, they're so good. Anyway, the big brands are not always the best. Sometimes boutique are better. I think boutique are often better, for sure. Effect order matters more than quality of pedals. This is impossibly true. Very, very true. Good thought, David. So I wish I would have paid attention to this earlier. For me, I usually go volume. I go tuner pedal, volume pedal in signal chain. Then I'm going to go to anything that's going to make it like louder or quieter. I don't know why it'd be quieter, but louder. So like all of my gain and overdrive, unless it's a fuzz. Fuzz doesn't play by the same rules. So fuzz, if you have one, you should put it first thing in your signal chain because it doesn't like buffered inputs coming into it. But volume tuner, and then overdrive, then modulation, anything that's going to change the pitch of your guitar. So if you have a tremolo or a chorus or a phaser or a flanger, put that in kind of your third spot. And then after that, anything that's messing with time, and this is where you can play with like delay or reverb, and you can flip. I like having delay into reverb so that it like sends these big like splashes of like reverb, like the bum, 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 the repeats, but then those flow into reverb. And I like having reverb at the end because it feels like it's my amp. But anyway, I wish I would have paid attention to that a lot earlier in life, because it would have saved me a bunch of money from buying dumb pedals that I didn't need. PRS. This is the one about 12 frets. PRS seems only Iris breaks the tradition of 12 frets not being slotted. Thoughts? I think it's an economic. Iris is the coolest, most vintage looking guitar that is still affordable. And so I think the reason they're doing the peg head, a solid peg head rather than a slot head, is to be more affordable. I don't like any guitar with a truss rod cover plate. Ruins an otherwise work of art. I like that. It doesn't bother me, but I get it. I know, like, yeah, I really like the look of my Hudson Dalton because it doesn't have a truss rod cover. It's just the faceplate. It also shows me that the truss rod's not accessible from the headstock, which means the guitar's not susceptible to neck breaks in the same way that the other ones are. The old Martin DMs are superior to new Collings. Whew, I disagree with that. Martin DMs are amazing, but Collings are freaking awesome. Like, they're so good. All right. It's ludicrous that most 12, I think we already did this one. Rich Light might be better than Ebony in the long run. You're probably right. It looks awesome, and it doesn't ever wear out. So Rich Light is a synthetic material compared to Ebony. It's also easier to make, more ethical. I don't know about the environmental impact. P90s are garbage, Mark Dugan. It depends on the guitar. I think P90s in a solid body are pretty... but P90s in a hollow body, or in my, it's down here, you can't see it, in my Rude Revelator, like a Fat Cat, I think they're a really warm pickup, and if they're in like a hollow body and they have more of that kind of space and warmth, they're pretty awesome. But I 50% agree, 28% agree. I've never played a Taylor that sounded decent. A lot of people have said that. I think that's because it sounds really diverse. I don't think they're not very specific sounding guitars. I don't like the way Taylors are set up. Tell them in El Cajon. I don't know. Taylors are always pretty enjoyable. They're pretty playable to me. Strap bridge pickups sound good. Sometimes. Most of the time. Occasionally. Sometimes they really don't sound good. Music stands are a crutch. It looks like you're reading from a book while you're performing. It's true. This is very bad, uncoordinated slam poetry. Yeah, I think of... yeah, that one's true. Especially in praise and worship. Nothing is worse than like at a bar when someone's like playing and they're just... Oh, the one that gets me, and Garrett might be watching this. I love you, Garrett. You're a great singer-songwriter. But Garrett plays with his phone right next by the mic stand. And like he's at like a farmer's market. So there's hundreds of people kind of milling around. But it's like he's in a different universe. Like he's just reading the lyrics to his phone right in front of his face. And I mean, it's great. The music sounds great. But I mean, we watch with our eyes. And so anyway, I think that it is a crutch as well. It's I think you really have to work on being able to, you have to be able to work on being present, and it's so hard. I had to make a mental like commitment, like a physical commitment that I am going to know my music well enough that I don't need chord sheets. And that was when I was like playing in like worship bands mostly, and I would just get to where like, okay, we will practice. Like I'll practice during the week. I'm going to memorize these songs, and it forced me to be better. It also forced me to really like build up my ear, because my brain's not smart enough, but my ears are pretty good. And so I can kind of jump in and catch up with people. Martin guitars are overrated. There's the theme here. Some are. Floyd Rose bridges are always superfluous. Always. The infinitive, those words are problematic. Sometimes they're freaking awesome. Like, listen to Girls, Girls, Girls by Motley Crue and tell me you don't want a guitar that you can dive bomb. Or Brothers of Metal by Manowar. They're awesome. But they're also really a pain. They're a hard thing to live with. So have a friend who lets you borrow a well set up and recently restrung locking trem guitar, and then let them deal with it when the strings break and all that stuff. You roasted my Martin backpacker. I think it's fun, light and easy, and to get kids into. Well, I think that Martin backpackers suck. They're awful. They're the worst guitar Martins ever made. They are better. They're better as firewood. They're better as weapons for home invaders. Okay, they don't sound good. They don't look cool. The bridges are silly because they're so tight. They're really hard to play because they have a really tight string spacing. The neck is gigantic because it's just too much tension on that tiny little thin box. The headstocks are tiny and dumb. The gig bags are awful. They still, they can fit in an overhead compartment, but they're just the worst. They're the worst. If you want a kid to get into music, there are many other ways to do it. Have a mandolin around. Have a ukulele around. Like my kids are all playing mandolin and ukulele right now, and they're poking around with it, and they're discovering how to play music. So I think it's a lazy excuse. Anyway, it's not. Sorry, my brain was working faster than my mouth, my talker was going faster than my brain. But yeah, not confrontational. Just I disagree. I don't think most guitar players have ever played truly great guitars. Truly great guitars. I think that's probably true. That's one of the things that's so fun for me, having this space and having guitar playing friends in the Valley. Like I'll invite people over and I'm like, hey, just come by, come hang out. And to see people's minds who like my friend Mike, he's amazing. He picked up guitar during COVID. He's recently retired, so he's in his late 60s, early 70s, and he's fishing all the time, and that's his thing. And he picked up guitar because he figured it'd be fun to just kind of play guitar while he's fishing and stuff. And Mike is just taking off. He's got for him, just the pentatonic scales make sense to him. So he can just when somebody's playing any song, he can find it and he can jump in. But a couple weeks ago, he came over and he played my Hussendahl, played my Firk, played my Paget. And for him, it was just this spiritual, religious experience playing a guitar like that. He'd never played anything like that. And he said, I didn't know guitars could be that good. And he has a $250 Ibanez that he loves. And thankfully, it hasn't ruined that guitar for him. But it's opened his eyes up to new guitars. So that's where I think the right guitars, when they enter into your world, they open up a whole new understanding of who you are, what you could offer the world, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I'm going to jump back into the comments, then I got to run. 714s is incredible. I love 714s. I like my Firk better. It's kind of like a 714 on steroids. Pre-1992 U2 is incredible. After that, not so much. That's true. Rob, you should check out my buddy Matt Rain's guitars. Okay. Gear shaming is not cool. It's true. Am I gear shaming? Is someone gear shaming? Humbuckers on a Strat or Telly is a sin unless it's a thin line Telly. I get that. All right, guys, I've got to wrap the show. So I've got to run. So I will say one thing that I do need to give you guys an update, and there are, 100 of us in here? Okay. And I'm going to try and do this without tearing up. Teared up about this a lot this week, over the last 2 weeks. My friend Skylar, she was my assistant here in Guitar Hunter for almost a year. She helped me just all the stuff behind the scenes, shipping stuff, making labels, doing stuff on the website, getting stuff onto the website to sell, making sure I posted stuff, and just reined in, because I live at 30,000 feet. She reined in and just helps bring really practical stuff. Skylar, in a year and a half ago, was diagnosed with cervical cancer, and we were all really scared. They just had a baby, and it was really scary for her to be diagnosed with cancer. They were in Georgia at the time. They went through cancer treatments. They went through chemo. I don't think they did radiation, but it was intense, man. And we thought that she'd beat that round of cancer, and they said that she was clear. At her 6-month checkup, they came back and they found spots on her liver. That was right around Thanksgiving of this year. At that point, they moved from Georgia up here to Harrisonburg, because she's married to one of my best friends from growing up. And so they moved here to be around UVA, mostly, to be at a better hospital, and to help, and to help for the rest of us, to kind of help take care of their little boy, just do laundry, bring them meals, help them, just kind of support them through the process of going through pretty intense chemo. So that's what they did in December all the way through January, February. I think in the beginning of March is when they stopped. To fast forward, every time there's been an opportunity for, hey, well, this is a 90% survival rate, every time they're in the 10%. And then they say, well, okay, this next round, it's kind of a 60-40. You should be okay. They're in the 40. Each time it's just gotten harder and harder. And so she was in the hospital the last 2 weeks here at UVA. They just transitioned her back to Georgia so that she could be around her friends and her community. And they're moving into hospice. So if you're someone who prays, if you're someone who believes that it's unjust that a 31-year-old a 31-year-old mom of a 2-year-old little boy and they've just been married a couple of years. They got pregnant pretty quick after they got married. Like, if you think that that's unjust, if you think that God would have mercy, I would love for you to pray with us. So she hasn't been able to work, and so that's where, like, if you want a giveaway or something, and you've had to send me an email like, hey, did this thing ship? That's why, is that I've been doing everything I'm back to doing everything myself, and because Dylan graduated from college and he's off doing amazing things, and so I'm back to, like, editing videos and putting these things together. And then just, like, pragmatically with my family, we've been taking care of Joe and Skylar. And so if you would, pray for Skylar. We're at a place where, like, we need, like, a miracle. And behind that, we need, like, wisdom and grace to help Joe move into the next season after Skylar. If Skylar passes away, Joe's going to be a single dad, in his mid-30s with a little boy. And so for him to have wisdom and patience and kindness and mercy, and to not just be destroyed. I don't know what I would do if my wife died. I couldn't handle that. So anyway, pray for Skylar, and thank you guys for sharing that. I didn't want to put that at the beginning of the video, but it's been a really hard 2 weeks. It's especially hard because we're leaving for the Czech Republic on Monday to spend time with FERC, and we feel pretty helpless. And what do we do? How do we support and help? But how do we also kind of, like, I know that Skylar wants us to go. So they're in Georgia. They're with some dear friends. They're in a house. They're kind of moving into hospice, but it's a little more manageable. So we've probably, I hope that we've got a couple months. I hope that we've got 50 years. It seems more manageable now. But anyway, thanks for your support and your friendship and your kindness. And so anyway, thank you guys. Have a great weekend. This is super fun. I'm glad we got to talk about guitars and to just connect. So anyway, be good. Go fill the world with music and friendship. Offer kindness and forgiveness, and be cool. All right. Love Love you guys and gals. See you later. Bye.